3, 4, 1.
Rushing or dragging.
Rushing.
So you do know the difference.
Many times people think mistakes means you're failing, but inherent in every awesome looking skill that you want to master, errors aren't just normal. They are something that is supposed to happen in order for your nervous system to get really good at a skill. Hello, my name is Matt, but people call me Trick. I spent years studying the science behind how we learn awesome movement skills that our favorite heroes and characters do. We're gonna go through why errors happen and why they are actually a really good thing you should expect and even praise, so you can learn these amazing and fun skills a whole lot faster. I think we have all had teachers who just kind of expected perfection immediately, or at some point we held ourselves to an insanely high standard for what we wanted to achieve in one shot. Acting as if a magic $1 million phrase existed that would suddenly propel us to just do whatever the skill was, no matter how difficult or insane it was, only to leave feeling completely bummed out. And at times, I have watched as people get very terrified of being humiliated if they made a dreaded error. And growing up as the speech impediment kid, it seemed like some people lived under this myth that being able to suddenly one-shot a skill and be perfect was the standard that is supposed to happen, and then therefore any mistake deserves to be punished. But unfortunately, that is not how the brain, or rather how your central nervous system, learns a new skill that you own and can just do whenever you want. And thus, one of the worst mistakes that you can do that causes people to plateau and even walk away frustrated is to dislike errors. The coolest thing I learned through my science studies at my university is whenever you attempt a new skill, your nervous system does not yet have a single correct pattern within it for you to do the skill. So instead of committing to one big guess, your nervous system does something that's rather brilliant. For every single repetition that you do, as you progress in steps, different areas of your brain will go about testing many different neural patterns in parallel. So basically, your nervous system begins running mass experiments to determine which circuits create the best outcomes. And this purposely creates errors. So when you practice a step of a tornado kick, suddenly in regions like your motor cortex, a bunch of neural circuits become activated as your central nervous system begins experimenting for differences in how much force each muscle should produce. It's trying to understand at which part of the skill does a certain muscle activate. It needs to know which muscles need to be sequenced together, what the joint angles feel like, the speed, the rhythm. A whole lot of things are being precisely calculated. Your brain kind of rolls dozens of dice to see what happens, and then it's recording which combinations work the best. So then when you sleep, it will reinforce and solidify these combinations and delete the rest. I have come to call this the build phase. Essentially, there's 3 phases the brain goes through to learn a skill. First being the build phase, then the refine phase that happens when you sleep, and then the finalize phase, where you become amazing at a skill that all depends on what I'm about to tell you. In the build phase, this mass testing and experimenting for which patterns create the best result, this is the best way that your brain can figure out and test which combinations of countless possibilities create the best result. So then you can reliably do the skill whenever you want in the future. And this is why any coach or sometimes students who think that they can say some magic phrase and then miraculously do some insane skill, like doing a front flip or a fancy kick that we see Goku do, is absolutely insane, because these errors help the regions of our brain understand exactly which neurons sequence together create the best outcome. And this is why, as a teacher, I would many times have to step back and just allow the students to wrestle with an appropriate step for a while without interrupting them. Because when you understand how amazing these errors are for the parts of your central nervous system that are involved in planning and figuring out the skill, suddenly being able to happily build in steps and never plateau again for any skill that you want becomes the reality. So let's go into what errors do to your brain regions. For anyone who's trying to learn to do a really cool physical skill, the area of your brain that's responsible for this is pretty much your motor cortex. And the thing about the motor cortex is it's what you call activity dependent, meaning that it will begin by maximizing the total number of possible connections and sequences that could result in an awesome skill. But it has no idea which connections are going to be the best. So when you make an error, your motor cortex isn't just shrugging and saying, "Oh well, that sucked." It's actually using that error as a kind of signal. Errors are like these little data points telling your brain, hey, this particular pattern didn't quite hit the mark. It actually made us really balanced for the cartwheel takeoff. It was awesome for that. But then we got stuck in a handstand and fell over because man, did it make us suck for the rotation that we needed. Or it's great for balance doing a kick, but we had no power. So as your motor cortex explores the best sequences, they get tagged as good, and the errors feed back into the system, guiding the process behind the scene, separate from your conscious awareness, telling the system to adjust the force, the timing, the balance for your next attempt. Because at this stage of the game, the entire point is the experimentation, but it kind of does this weird thing where it ends up sampling experiments around the bullseye on the dartboard. So your brain kind of feels out the territory, it explores the neighborhood around the bullseye, and these variations help your brain understand what the shape of success looks like so it can reliably hit the bullseye later. And if you try to push too far by skipping steps and just sending it, you skip this entire exploratory phase, and then you never build the stable pattern that you need to effortlessly repeat the skill. So the bottom line is, errors aren't just noise. They're actually useful signals that both guide your brain to fine-tune and recalibrate whatever it is that you're trying to learn until you get it right. So let's get into the second part, being the difference between good errors and bad errors. And also, I'm running a challenge-style founders group where I'm teaching a small crew live how to rewire their nervous system and move like their favorite characters. It's going to be around 4 weeks of live coaching, skill breakdowns, and real science behind how your body actually learns these awesome movement skills. Right now, it's going to be dirt cheap, less than the cost of 2 private lessons, and I poured an insane amount of hours into this, and this will never be this affordable again. So even if you're slightly interested, hit the waitlist link below. Spend 4 weeks unlocking these hero-level movements with us, and then get lifetime access to the full course when it drops later, probably at 10x the price. Spots are extremely limited, links down below. You don't need a gym, and you don't need to be insanely athletic. You just need the drive to move better, smarter, and cooler than ever before. So now, whenever you get a variety of errors, this is a very good thing. This means that the testing and experimenting that our motor cortex has to do is going on. There's only one scenario in which errors are quite bad. And unfortunately, if I, as a teacher, am in a rush to have a student nail a cool looking skill right away, or the student wants me to utter the magic phrase that unlocks their inner Super Saiyan, we end up with repeat errors. And the one thing we want to avoid is experiencing the same error or outcome over and over again, which typically means that you're way too far away from what is familiar. Because if you're experiencing the same error over and over again, it now means that this testing, this mass experimentation of trialing different patterns to find the ones that give you the new abilities is no longer happening. Instead, the errors are too big for you to either consciously or unconsciously correct. It is a force that has shown up, and now your nervous system, for lack of a better word, is screwed. And at that point, you just need to drop down 1 or 2 steps. This doesn't mean that you go in the opposite direction to a step that is already easy, because that means that the test phase has already happened. Errors kind of act as the guides that point you in the right direction each step of the way. And if you're interested in exactly what all the science looks like and applying it to doing all these crazy skills in a safe way, this is what I have spent years doing at my own facility for hundreds of students. The link is down below, and I'll send you an email when spots open, so you can show up and learn to do these cool movements. And a really cool fact is that once you sleep, this is where your brain enters the refine phase. This is where all the best patterns get hardwired and locked in. So the next time that you come back to the skill, it's easier and you can move on to these higher level steps. But you've got to watch out for how well you sleep and avoid certain training mistakes that just slow this whole process way down. And we dive into that right here in this video.